Okay. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on tips on submitting an annual meeting proposal for Columbus, Ohio meeting in 2024. My name is Sam Fogazzato. I am currently the University Registrar at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I am serving as the Program Committee Chair for the Columbus meeting. I am leading this webinar today with my colleagues, Dan Weber, who is the Vice Chair for the annual meeting and will be the Chair-elect starting with the 2024 meeting, as well as Becky Fowkes, who is in the AACRAO office and is basically the head person for all of AACRAO's meetings and events, and she's been an invaluable support for the program committee and all of its members. So the way I thought I'd organize this, Dan and I discussed kind of our approach in terms of the talking to you all about the annual meeting proposal, and we basically walked through a sample proposal with the data elements that the program committee will look for as we evaluate sessions for the annual meeting, as well as, more importantly, what potential meeting attendees will look for when they're looking in the Whova app or the gallery online. So the first things first are, when you submit an annual proposal, you're going to submit under what's called a group, and more specifically under a program committee. The program committee is kind of on a topical area. So we have a professional staff development committee. We have a federal relations committee. We have, various committees under admissions. All of those within the kind of AACRAO structure roll up to what are called groups. We have groups 1 through 7. Dan will talk in depth about group 7, but that's a little bit more complicated. But groups 1 through 6 are basically organized around topical areas. They are, again, what the program committees roll up into, the more specific areas. So you'll pick a group based on what you are presenting on. It is good if you get in the right ballpark, but if you don't worry about it. The program committee can reclassify it if we need to. There are going to be a number of gray areas. For example, we have an information technology group with a bunch of committees under it. You might be submitting a proposal that also has to do with, not only technical issues, but also academic records, which is yet another group. It could fit in either group, either pack. But the program committee will worry about ultimately what group it's listed under. And I would encourage you to, try to get in the right ballpark, but you don't have to get 100% right, because we can always reclassify things for you. All right. Now, the most important things, in our thinking about, Becky.
I'm going to share my screen just so they can get a visual of the proposal, if that's okay. Don't want to surprise you, but I'm going to go ahead. Okay,
please do. I didn't want to start a dummy proposal myself, so it's better if you do. Yes, this is what you see. That's where you pick the committee and then the group. And again, we will fix it for you if somehow it's incorrect. The biggest, challenges or the most salient data elements that we look for on the program committee really come down to, of course, the idea, what it's on. You want to think about sort of a hot topic or an area that's pertinent to membership or a subset of membership, as it were. You want to come up with a good title. There are character limits on the title, but I would encourage you to think of something that pops to some extent. Doesn't have to be the snappiest title, but it's good if you can. Clever, everyone likes a clever title, at least I do. So if you come with a clever title, it's great. Description really is, in my thinking, the meat of what we're looking at when we're on the program committee, when the PAC members are reviewing the session proposal, and when membership reads it. There are two types of descriptions. There's the program description, which is what the potential attendees will see. So you want to get that. You want that to accurately reflect what your session is all about. You could see that it has a character count of 500, and that's going to be in the gallery that's online for the membership to see, as well as in the Whova app when that goes live sometime in the early part of 2024. For the program committee specifically, though, we have the review description with a character count of 2,500. You can significantly expand on what it doesn't have to be different, but it certainly can be. So if hypothetically you're an eager beaver and you have PowerPoints ready, or maybe you're adapting a presentation that you gave another context. So you have a lot more meat already. You can put more detail in the review description if you think it is relevant for the program committee and for the PAC members to see, but you don't have to. But it's just it's a second option or another option out there for you to convey what you are getting across with your session. Now, I thought we would spend a little bit of time. Does anyone have any questions to date? I don't see anything in the chat. No. Okay. Let's see, where was I? I figured we'd spend maybe a little bit of time talking about the different session types. Do you want to scroll to that section, Becky? Oh, there we go. So breakout sessions are what I think of as kind of the most traditional session type in the annual meeting. I think they probably, I've not done a count myself, maybe Becky, you have, or Dan, you have, they probably represent the majority of the sessions, but that's essentially a session where you're a presenter and you're getting in front of a room and you're presenting to a group of people, in the most traditional sense. Panels are a variant of that. That is essentially where it is you plus a few colleagues presenting on a topic, maybe giving different perspectives from different institutions. I did a panel myself at the most recent annual meeting with three other colleagues from different universities on CRM. So that can be, that's an example of a panel, and they are only 50 minutes as the description says right there. Roundtables, that's been a fun one for the program committee to talk about. So if you take away nothing else from this presentation, just remember that a roundtable does not literally mean a roundtable in the room. They are meant to be discussion-based sessions. They are, you who are proposing the session, you of course are kind of the facilitator, but you are more of a facilitator than a presenter. Okay, so you're really there you would maybe come with guiding questions for discussion. You maybe might pass around a mic if it's a very large roundtable, or figuratively passing a mic to different people in the room. But it's really you facilitating more than you're presenting. A number of the roundtables we have are kind of standing roundtables. They are, there's, I think, grad and professional schools roundtable. There's, they're kind of birds of a feather type roundtables out there. But just remember that they are more discussion based. And if you present a roundtable, it's really not expected that you're going to get up there and lecture. And certainly if, well, in any case here, if you are in the process of developing your proposal and you think that a different session type might be more descriptive of what you're doing, you can contact the PAC chair or the program committee about reclassifying it. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Okay. Stop and share has been another one that's been a lot of cause for discussion on the program committee. That is essentially kind of a poster session, but not really. Those are meant to be, unlike a roundtable, you are presenting. So it's expected that you, or possibly a group of you with some colleagues, are the expert in the room, so to speak. And again, not to kind of harp on the furniture piece, but a distinguishing feature of Stop and Shares is it's not physically in a room. We have not done the site visit yet to the Columbus meeting facility, but we're going to do that in October. When we do the site visit on the program committee, we pick kind of a more public area in the exhibit hall or wherever to set up Stop and Shares. And it's expected that you bring your own materials. That could be poster boards. It can be a laptop, for example. You can bring handouts. But the idea is you, the presenter, or again, a group of you and colleagues will get in front of, let's say a poster board or whatever. You'll gather at a spot in an exhibit hall. You'll present for maybe 10 minutes. You will take questions ad hoc from whoever your audience happens to be. And then maybe another group of people cycles in, and then you can maybe give the spiel, give your talk, your elevator pitch again. And then you go through a new round of questions. It can be that way. I attended a Stop and Share last meeting. It was actually very good, but it turned out, given the type of the topic, it ended up being we all stayed the whole time. So either one works. Although if it is a topic that is maybe a little bit more extended, needs more extended treatment, it might pay to reach out to the program committee to consider slotting it as a more formal breakout session. But we do have some flexibility there. But in general, Stop and Shares are they tend to be maybe a little bit shorter, if you will. And they're just slightly different, less traditional format than a breakout session. They are not alternates. So I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit here. When the program committee reviews sessions for review, we accept some and we slot them, we give them rooms, etc. We have also a category called alternates, which are the ones where we don't slot them. These are sort of independent session types. A stop and share. There are cases where maybe the program committee feels that a traditional breakout session is more suited for a stop and share. We might reclassify it on the back end, but a stop and share itself is not considered an alternate. An alternate is a different category for a session proposal. The final two types that are listed there, workshops. So Dan will have more to say about workshops shortly. Workshops are sessions that are on, they need more extended topics, or more extended treatment rather. They can be half day or full day. They are typically offered, I think in all cases actually, offered the Saturday before the annual meeting. It's a separate fee, etc. So just calling something a workshop doesn't make it so. It actually has meaning for the program committee. Even if you put the word workshop in the title, the group 7, her name is Portia Lamar, she might reach out to you about it, but calling it a workshop doesn't make it so, and we might actually scrub the workshop from the title if it really is not going to be a formal workshop. And then pre-recorded is really another option that's out there if you wanted to offer. We've since the pandemic, really, we've talked about ways to kind of keep online content out there for annual meeting attendees. Pre-recorded is an option. You can certainly present it that way if you so choose, and it would be available to people who register for the virtual meeting only. Any questions thus far? I know I've just spat a lot of information out at you. Okay, I will keep chugging along. Oh, you know what, Dan? I think you're on to talk about workshops.
Sure. To expand upon what Sam was just saying about workshops, they fall under Group 7, and so Group 7 is specifically, as Sam said, it's with Portia Lamar, and she is looking at the pre-conference workshops. We usually have 8 to 10, and they are either a half day up to 3 hours, or a full day, or some of them are 2-day workshops. So half day, up to 3 hours, and then either a full day or 2 days. There are some workshops that are evergreen that we offer every year, such as Registrar 101 and FERPA 2.0, Reg 201, but then we're looking for new ideas. And so if you're looking at presenting a workshop, almost always they are with other presenters. Because of the length of the workshops, we're looking to have more than one presenter so that that workload of presenting the workshop can be split among those that are presenting. It is something, as you're thinking about whether it's a workshop or a breakout session, if your content falls into the 50 to 75 minute mark, then obviously that will be a breakout session. But if you have content that could fall into the category of a workshop, we look forward to hearing those proposals. We really are looking for new ideas. This past year at the annual meeting, we had a tuition revenue 101 workshop. We had a CLR LER workshop. So those were new to the ones that we presented in the past. So hopefully that gives you all a little bit more idea of what the workshops will entail. And as Sam indicated, there are fees, additional registration fees that are associated with the workshops. They also have to have a minimum number of individuals, attendees. So a minimum number of attendees who have to register for the workshops to actually take place. But they are always on Saturday and Sunday before the beginning of the conference.
Can I just say one more thing about sometimes a session description will include the word workshop, right? Like in this session, we will be workshopping teaching young staff how to manage priorities with student success. That doesn't make it a workshop. It could still be a breakout session and be very interactive. And Sam, when you mentioned the session description, I do see that session descriptions that describe engaging attendees tend to be considered to be very strong session descriptions. So that was just one thing I wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. That is a good tip. I mean, yes, right. You want to use the program description field generally to kind of describe your session, of course, to the membership, to potential attendees, but also to kind of sell it as well. So yeah, don't undersell yourself. It's a good opportunity to kind of let your ideas shine. I forgot to mention live stream. There are a limited number of slots for live stream sessions. It is, I've attended at least one. I know I moderated one. It's been something that's been part of our effort to kind of keep a virtual presence for the annual meeting, or a virtual option available for the annual meeting. But we are limited in terms of the number of slots that we have for live streaming, simply because it ends up being cost prohibitive. What else did I have? Let me see. When I prepare the notes, I went on the admin panel, not on the traditional. So I'm out of order from what you're displaying, Becky. Actually, Dan, do you want to jump into competencies, proficiencies, and learning objectives?
Sure. So as part of your submission, you will need to choose one of these 12 core competencies. And if you're not exactly sure of which one it fits into, think about what your session, as close as you can to one of these core competencies. They are available for individuals who are reviewing the gallery of sessions that are being offered. So this just gives the attendees more information. So as a presenter, you'll be expected to provide a core competency. There are also proficiencies below the core competencies, and these will, as you select one, there are the 5 that are listed here: admissions, enrollment management, international, records and academic services, and then transfer and articulation. And as you choose one of these proficiencies, this is really what the core focus of your presentation will be about. So both with the core competencies and the proficiencies, as you choose them, just think about what is the main focus of your presentation. With the proficiencies, there's smart logic behind each of those. So as you choose one of the core competencies, it will choose another section to provide. So if, Becky, if you choose admissions under proficiency.
The logic has to build from the top. So I've chosen group 1, and now which of the committees should I choose?
Let's choose admissions policies and practices. Let's just go with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And so under the proficiencies, obviously this will be admission proficiencies, and then there will be additional drill down of getting into specifically what the focus of the presentation will be on. Again, not all of the presentations fit perfectly into one of these categories, but choose a core competency and a proficiency that best fit the presentation that you're going to plan to give. There are also learning outcomes. There are 3 that are required. These should be phrases or sentences, usually 1 or 2 sentences at the most, that talk about the learning outcomes. And you should be able to, if you have a well-written session description, be able to tease out from that session description the learning outcomes of what you're looking to have the attendees learn as they attend your session. So give that some thought, because again, the learning outcomes are visible. They're information that the attendees can see as they're choosing sessions. And so as you develop your session description, think too about what these learning outcomes will be.
Great. I will say, as kind of maybe a matter of personal preference on learning outcomes, it's not a bad idea to use maybe action verbs like, to learn how to do such and such, et cetera. Because I think I've seen learning outcomes where it's literally like one word and it doesn't really tell you much about it really is meant to enhance what you're putting in the review description and the program description. So you want to use language that helps your session to pop and really outlines what you are expecting attendees to take away. Now, in terms of an intended audience, typically when I've presented sessions myself, I would say the first choice is probably the safest, the general audience. But I have, again, I've not run numbers in this. I have to believe that represents most of our session proposals, a general audience session. You can certainly tailor things. There was a session I went to years ago on succession planning. So that was probably significant experience in the profession, because you're not going to be pitching that probably to people who are new in the profession. And then I know that we have some sessions geared towards young professionals, but for the most part, do think about your intended audience. But I have to believe in a lot of cases, a general audience, thing is probably, the option is probably just fine for most folks. With intended institutional audience, again, this could be because I spent a lot of time on the professional staff development committee. I think that general audience tended to be the most common thing that I saw, but certainly depending on, of course, the topic of your session and maybe the overall topical area, it might make more sense to talk about, to think about your intended institutional audience more specifically. Although in a lot of cases, I think, especially if you're presenting on, a leadership or management topic, for example, you'll probably pick a general audience in that case. The default for length of session preference is 50 minutes. We have some capacity for some 75-minute sessions. Just be aware that it's a 50-minute time slot for everything, including questions and answers. So when you are preparing your session, don't plan on talking for 50 minutes straight or 75 minutes straight. You want to leave, a good 10 minutes for questions and some discussion as well. Just keep that in mind. And other things to think about when presenting a session, you might be in the position, maybe you're attending because you know someone who's great, or you think it's a great topic. You want to think about who's going to be presenting on that topic. So if you're here kind of vicariously for someone else, think about who that someone else is. You might also, depending on the nature of your topic, think about other people from AACRAO, or maybe in a state or a regional AACRAO or at your institution, who could present with you. There are a number of topics where I think it really does help, in a lot of cases, to have at least one of their co-presenter, depending on the nature of your topic, but just in general, I think it doesn't hurt. It can be a good thing if you're a brand new presenter, maybe you have a little stage fright. It's not a bad thing to have someone else in the room with you as well. It's the audience maybe seems a little smaller, a little friendlier if you have someone next to you at the podium. But think about that, and it can certainly enrich the quality of your presentation, having someone else to bounce ideas off of and present with. I think we talked about this. So in terms of what appears where, like with the program description appears in both the online gallery as well as in the Whova app. The online gallery will also have core competencies, proficiencies, and learning objectives. I believe the Whova app only has learning objectives and the description. The
core competencies are the tracks in Whova.
In Whova?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, scratch what I said then. In terms of timelines, we are asking folks to submit by September 15th, and the program committee will start the review process shortly after that. The review process is kind of an iterative process. It's a lot. It might seem, if you're on the kind of the other side of things and wanting to present, it might seem like a straight up or down process where we just vote, and it really is a much more interactive process. We do look at, session topics as well as the quality of the proposal in front of us, but we do want a range of perspectives from different institutions, different folks. Especially, we welcome brand new presenters. We don't want to have, we have a lot of people who present who've presented many years in a row sometimes, and we always welcome new faces behind the podium at the annual meeting. in terms of when you'll hear about your session being accepted, we kind of, and again, this goes back to what I said about an iterative process. We should have notices start going out very roughly late October, early November. But again, we typically, it becomes kind of a repetitive thing because inevitably, we might have someone who can't travel, so we have a spot to fill. But it's kind of a rolling process in a lot of ways. Okay. Any other, Dan or Becky, any other topics we want to talk about for session submission?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Right. Any questions? One question in the chat. I'm relatively new to engaging with AACRAO. What sorts of issues are on members' minds? Are you hearing common questions from members? So I don't think there's a sort of a pick list of issues that are on members' minds. A lot of it would depend on the region of the country. I would recommend, Jessica, if you want to talk to a few colleagues at your institution, maybe in your local AACRAO, certainly reach out to Dan or me. We can get you in touch with, with your potential topic. We can certainly get you in touch with someone on the program committee who can feel people out on the PACs. But I wouldn't be shy. There isn't like a list of topics we're looking for. I think that we're open to considering anything. I mean, if you wanted to talk about using punch cards to do student record keeping, maybe that's going to be a little outdated. But we are pretty open in terms of relevant topics for registrars and admissions professionals. Any topics we should stay away from? Well, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. If it's something that you think might raise sort of hot button issues, or we can certainly talk to you more about it, but I've not heard of anything like absolutely don't present on such and such. Just depending on the topic, you might want to be careful in terms of how you approach it. Especially what I'm thinking of is if you want to do like some kind of professional development oriented activity that I'm totally making this up, but you wanted people to had an icebreaker where they had to reveal something personal about themselves, and you might want to be careful in how you ask it. But I can't think of a topic where like, no, you can't present on such and such.
Anecdotally, if I think about walking through the building, the rooms that tend to be very full at the meetings I've attended have had as much to do with career development and leadership as they have with very profession specific topics like implementing this new CLR or whatnot. So that is one thing that I've observed, is that there's high interest in professional development, leadership, engaging younger staff, all of the in the trenches, real life stories, reality TV that we learn from each other in the industry. Dan, is there anything you want to add?
The thing that comes to mind is that we really try to have presentations that focus on admissions, registrar, enrollment management. And so if you're representing an area that is admissions related, those have been, there have been fewer sessions that get submitted. So really encourage you that if you are representing that side of the profession to submit a proposal, because we really are looking for more opportunities to increase the presentations from admissions folks.
The one thing I wanted to add in terms of, it's not a topic you should stay away from, but hypothetically, let's say your institution works with a particular vendor and the vendor approaches you about, going in on a presentation. There is a separate review process for sort of corporate sessions. So you can certainly go with it, but the program committee will probably punt it to the AACRAO office, who will need to reach out to the vendor. There's, again, separate process for that, a review process for that. There's a question, Dan. I don't know if you want to take the one about a workshop, minimum number of registrants for a workshop to take place.
It really varies. I'm gonna maybe ask Becky if she can speak to that a little bit more, but I'd say typically minimally 10. Is that right? So then we were able to this past year have all of the workshops take place. It was wonderful to be able to have people registering for the workshops. But there is that minimum just to make sure that the costs for food, because usually there's refreshments that are served, for materials, things like that, that the cost to offer the workshop is recouped from those that are registering for the workshop. Becky, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, the half-day workshops, that it depends on the cost at the venue, but between, let's say, 12 and 15 for a half-day workshop, and between 20 and 25 for a full-day workshop, and upwards of like 40 for a 2-day workshop, because there's just more, like Dan said, there's more food, there's more, a bigger room, and more printouts and different things. So that's a rough, but yeah, usually about 15, and then about 25, and then about 40 are the numbers. And the workshops are marketed separately by AACRAO. You know, there'll be emails, come to the annual meeting, and then there's an email that's specific, come learn more about strategic planning as an enrollment manager, and that's very specific to the workshop. Sam, I think the question in the chat here goes back to what you said about being approached by a vendor. Would it be okay to describe how another company has assisted in the work, but not have them present, for example, a CRM that has helped, but not the CRM actually being present?
That's a good question. I mean, so for example, I presented, as I said, on a panel, and we talked about Salesforce. Salesforce was not in the room, nor were the vendors for any of the other CRMs. And that was not a corporate session. In terms of, and I don't know if you've come across this, Becky, where I've not heard of this, where a vendor basically volunteers someone to present but isn't there. I don't know if that really is corporate or not, but I don't know if that would actually happen. So
we've had sessions that are institutional sessions where they've presented on success strategies using Ellucian. And as long as someone from Ellucian is not at the front representing, I mean, if a presenter sells products or services to AACRAO membership, they are considered a corporate presenter. But if it's all institutional presenters sharing strategies and doing you know, leading a discussion, that would not automatically be a corporate session. What happens sometimes is the two institutional people will submit, and then Ellucian will see it, right? Like on the gallery, because they're looking, and then tap, tap, tap. Hey, I see you're here to talk about Ellucian. Would you like me to join you? And these two like perfectly innocent, excited presenters are like, sure. And little do they know that now AACRAO was like, oh, hey, Ellucian, you owe us. There's a fee that goes with being a corporate presenter, because it's such great exposure for them, right? Like our membership are fantastic, and that. So just sort of if you do get tapped by a vendor, it's not a no, it's just that there's more conversation that happens with AACRAO about that session moving forward. So
yeah, and I honestly don't let it get in the way of your idea, and don't let it discourage you from submitting. Just know that there is a backroom process that has to happen with the AACRAO office.
I had a couple things, Sam, but we can just keep going with questions if we just want to do that as well.
I don't see any more in chat unless someone wanted to verbalize a question. So yeah, go for it, Becky.
Sure. A few points just to say out loud are that all presenters are expected to register for the meeting. We do have, there's an early bird date that's February 15th. I think registration will open in early December, but all presenters are expected to register. And if you are concerned about the cost of attending the meeting, there are some options for the Connor Scholarship, for example, is something that AACRAO has available for those that are cost sensitive. There's a discount for first-time minority attendees. There's a student discount if you're a full-time student employed less than half-time. So if you wanted to co-present with a doctoral candidate, or that, there are some less expensive ways to attend. And also the Best of the Best nomination process opens in December, which is where if you are presenting at a state and regional and want to nominate, you can nominate yourself. You can also nominate someone else, but you can also nominate yourself for consideration as a winner for a Best of the Best session, which then the registration for the presenter is complimentary. So there are some opportunities there for ways to come. And I do also just need to say out loud that you should not plan on Zooming any of your presenters in. We do not have the bandwidth for the internet. It's very, very pricey, especially post-COVID, and we just cannot, we cannot support presenters Zooming in and co-presenting via live stream. So that's just a thing to say out loud as well. Okay, so there's a question here in the chat. So it sounds like the conference proposals are due in September. Yes. And early registration begins in December. Yes. Can you please let us know when our presentations are selected and or when we can expect to hear that our presentation has been selected?
We're looking, Hannah, at like late October-ish, early November-ish. What is the early bird deadline typically back? It's like early February or so.
It's like February 15th. I usually have been parking it right around Valentine's Day. It's a
Okay.
marker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so you would know whether or not your presentation is accepted, before the early bird deadline, certainly.
And I would say don't get discouraged if you're picked as an alternate. A lot of our alternates end up coming through because accepted sessions have to withdraw for a variety of reasons. And it's a national meeting, so there's a high number of applicants and there's a healthy alternate list. And if you have questions about your proposal, or if you have, are wondering, what can I do to strengthen my proposal? Our program committee are all teachers. They're all fantastic partners. They want to help. We want new voices and want new presenters coming to the annual meeting. And you don't have to have presented. I mean, we want strong presenters, but don't be intimidated either, right? Like, don't not apply because, well, I've never presented it at PACRO, or I'm in TACRO, and every time I go to TACRO, it's so big. I mean, AACRAO is probably even worse. It's really very, very inviting. It's a positive thing to go ahead and go through the process. That I would encourage you, if you're even thinking about it, to follow it through, and we're nice people. I think is what I'm trying to say, but the program committee are nice people.
Yes, most of us.
Not
anyway.
so much.
Not myself.
The program committee.
No, but in all seriousness, we are there in terms of being iterative. Yes, it's kind of a back and forth, but it's also we're not sitting back and just judging. We are, we will help you, as will the PAC chairs and PAC members, make a stronger sounding, a stronger presentation if you want advice on anything. The one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if there's anyone on this call who is very gung-ho and you're going to submit, you have a lot of ideas in your head and you want to submit them all as proposals. One of the things the program committee looks at are presenters who submit multiple sessions. We try not to slot someone to present, like, let's say 5, because if the person gets laryngitis the week before and they have to cancel, it ends up being a big hole to fill. That is one, it's one we had kind of a nightmare situation this meeting where, and this was through no fault of the presenters, but the institution pulled back their approval like last minute. So, we were all scrambling trying to fill that in. Just be aware that the sort of multiple session issue is one that we've dealt with, and we just want you to be aware of that we may not be, if you present, submit 4 proposals, we may not be able to slot all of them just for logistical reasons. Yes, and that's a good point. 3 times in one meeting is a lot. Okay, anything else? Best of the Best nominations.
So in early December, this is to answer the question about how the Best of the Best process works. AACRAO will send out a nomination form to state and regional leadership and ask for nominations for the best of the best. And those come in and the program committee reviews that. Maybe actually, Sam, I'm going to hand it off. I can tell you the AACRAO half and then we'll hand it back to Sam on what happens then, once the nominations have come in.
I'm a little fuzzy on the details, honestly.
So I send the program committee, here's who's been nominated in the session description and the names and who people are. And then the program committee reviews them together and they select their top 3. And then those presenters are notified that they've been selected for best of the best. Are they able to attend? If they are able to attend, then they're badged, for lack of a better term, to receive a complimentary registration for the meeting. Dan, you've come off mute, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you.
No, well, and so they're selected, and we ensure that they get on the program by adding them to open slots that exist. And communication comes from AACRAO and from the program committee that the presentation has been submitted as one of the best of the best. And there are 3 that are selected in that way each year. To very directly address, Hannah, what happened to you, it is gray on whether or not nominees that are not selected are informed by the way you were nominated but not selected, because there's that's a hole that I'm as I read it, that's a hole we need to button that up, that if you're nominated, there needs to be a more clear process for if you've been nominated and selected or not selected. So if you weren't contacted by AACRAO last year, it's because you were not selected, and it was not a firm process yet on what to do. Yep, I see the comment. It would be great if you were informed. We'll do a better job this year. Thank you for letting us know that that was your experience.
Okay, any other questions from folks? Okay, well, Dan or Becky, any closing remarks?
I just encourage everyone to, if you're part of this call, obviously you have interest in learning about how to present or looking to present at AACRAO. We really encourage your submissions. All of them are looked at, and really encourage you that if you're especially a first-time presenter, find someone else from your school, find someone else from another school, co-present. It's one of the better ways of getting involved, but don't hold back. AACRAO is really definitely looking for those new voices, as Becky said, to be able to be part of the program. So really looking forward to seeing your submissions later this, in the next couple of months, to be able to get those in so that they can be considered as part of the 2024 meeting.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us. Reach out to any of us 3 if you have questions. But we look forward to seeing your sessions, seeing the interesting, innovative topics you'll have to bring in Columbus. All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.